Well, the value of Bitcoin has jumped over 1,700% this year, prompting experts and countries to side with or go against cryptocurrencies. Amidst this wild, ongoing, volatile rally in cryptocurrencies around the world in general, and Bitcoin in particular, the Union Government of India has warned the public against investing in virtual currencies. The government has likened investments in virtual currencies to Ponzi schemes. In a statement, the Finance Ministry has said, and I quote, "There is a real and heightened risk of investment bubble of the type seen in Ponzi schemes, which can result in sudden and prolonged crash, exposing investors, especially retail consumers, losing their hard-earned money." The statement also says that the price of such virtual currencies is a mere speculation leading to volatility. This comes after the RBI's recent clarification on the issue. Now, recently, the Reserve Bank of India said that it has not given any license to any entity to operate as exchanges to trade in cryptocurrencies. Now, the RBI stance is not an exception. In fact, many central banks have also opined that trading in bitcoins is a lot of risk. So what next for virtual currencies in India? Will the RBI and the government look at regulating the trade of bitcoins? Is it really a bubble, or will central banks change their stance in the future? To discuss that and more, we're joined by R. Gandhi, former Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank of India. So we really appreciate you joining us on Bloomberg Quint. I want to start by asking you what you make of the government's warning, this particular warning or the set of warnings coming in. Is the way forward regulation, sir?
Yeah, thanks for the question. These virtual currencies are being seen by different people in different jurisdictions differently. Somebody says it's a currency, somebody says it is a security, somebody else considers it as a commodity, and there has been arguments from some other group that it must be treated as an asset by its own right. So there has been no consensus about which is the right one. So clearly, the virtual currency per se, dealing in buying or selling, it is not an illegal activity. But there are occasions that there are evidences, anecdotal evidences, that this virtual currency has been used for illegal activity. That doesn't make the virtual currency per se an illegal activity. That's why banning or totally stopping it is not the right method. That's what Indian jurisdiction, Indian government, Reserve Bank, SEBI, and other regulators have so far are of the opinion that it is not an illegal activity, but definitely it is a very risky activity. So when a risky activity is there, then it is the first duty, it is a duty of the government and the regulators to caution the public that you be careful while dealing with such arrangements. So that's what Reserve Bank and the government has so far been maintaining. Whether it should be recognized and properly regulated, and those things are yet to be decided. I believe that all of us know that there is a committee Government of India has formed, wherein all the regulators and ministries, various ministries, are sitting together with the experts to decide how to go forward in dealing with the virtual currency.
Right, Mr. Gandhi, you mentioned illicit activities and transactions, and that being a key concern for regulators like the Reserve Bank of India. But would you say that that is a little exaggerated, or pointing to the evidence of 2017, where we've seen some of the biggest cyber attacks? We've seen ransomware viruses attacking businesses and individuals around the world. And, well, all of these hackers seem to be demanding payment in Bitcoin. So there's a lot of activity with Bitcoin on the dark web as well. Is that one of the key areas of concern when you talk about illicit activities and transactions?
Yeah, when these virtual currencies are being utilized for various purposes, there are one group who are investing in purely from speculative perspective, that is to make money on the value differences that may happen during the course of the period. So that is one may not be able to have a negative opinion about such position. But the same set of units, the virtual currencies, are being utilized for illegal activities. As you just mentioned, there has been evidences that this ransom group are demanding ransom in terms of bitcoins or other virtual currencies. And we also know that certain other illegal activities like drug trafficking or anything. So that is also being carried out in terms or settled through bitcoins. So that, but whether what is the size of such activities, nobody knows. It is anybody's guess. There is no clear data whether it has risen to such an extent that it has to be prohibited. That evidence has not yet come on the scene. So that is why it has to be closely monitored. People will have to be watchful. Government and the regulators should also be continuously be monitoring it. That's what is the position currently.
Right, Mr. Gandhi, I'd love to get your views on this as well, which is essentially, we've been talking about one technology that has disrupted 2017, and that happens to be the underlying technology for Bitcoin, which is blockchain. It's a fascinating technology, but what I want to understand from you is when a regulator is viewing something like this, and if they're considering regulation, or if governments are looking at this, isn't it important to make that distinction between blockchain as a technology? Because exchanges, banks, everyone seems to be using that or thinking of using that in the future, and Bitcoin or virtual currencies that operate using that technology as a use case.
See, technology cannot be regulated and should not be regulated, because a technology is a tool. It can be utilized by any type of industry, not just only the financial industry. It can be used by anybody. So that's why one should not be worried about or even thinking about regulating the blockchain technology per se. Regulation should be technology neutral. That it should not come into that area at all. So that's a disruptive technology. It will be useful for very many purposes. So there is no question of regulating that blockchain technology per se. What we need to be looking at is that usage of by using whether it is a blockchain technology or some other technology, if something called virtual currency, that is what we should be worried about, not about the underlying technology.
And I also want to get your views on initial coin offerings. Now, we've seen China stands on it. In fact, China has completely come up with a blanket ban on ICOs and, of course, on exchanges as well. But in India as well, we're seeing a lot of startups looking at ICOs as a way of fundraising, so to speak, and it's getting popular around the world. Do you think, sir, that initial coin offerings, the way they're operating, should be sort of legitimized, or is that also sort of a crypto sham or a scam, so to speak?
See, initial coin offering, because the term has been borrowed from the initial public offering. So it is something like similar characteristics are seen. That's why the debate has started whether it should be a regulated one. Anything which is done through a kind of exchange that between two consulting adults who wants to invest, who want to sell, who wants to buy on both the sides, and somebody is intermediating that. In that case, yes, naturally, by normal regulation should apply. But there again, there has to be a threshold. So long as it is not by crossing the threshold, it is a very, very small activity, then there is no point in regulating it unless it has created clear damages to the public system or public wealth. China has seen that, yes, it has created damages to the public, so they have banned it. In other jurisdictions like ours, we have not yet seen it as a damaging way, or its potential to damage is limited. So that is why it has not yet been brought under direct regulation by under like an exchange, stock exchange like that. It has not yet come. But again, obviously, as I said, the regulators and government will be closely watching. Is it crossing that threshold, the comfortable threshold? In that case, definitely I would expect regulation to come in. Even the other day, the SEBI chairman has said that he is closely monitoring that. So yes, that is the position now. So, anything which is just because it has started, we should not get into controlling it.
Absolutely, sir. As a last question to you, I just want to understand. So, obviously these are non-fiat cryptocurrencies. When it comes to, there have been talks of regulators coming together and coming up with a fiat cryptocurrency, which is perhaps more acceptable and can take on the likes of, Bitcoin or even traditional currencies, so to speak. Sir, what are your views on something like that, where it's a concerted effort from regulators?
Yes, in cryptocurrencies, the added feature is that it is cross-border. It is because the technology has enabled it throughout the world. People can deal in that. So naturally, different jurisdiction will have to come together and have a coordinated approach. And I'm aware that international standard-setting bodies of the central banks like the BIS, that Basel Committee, and IOSCO, all of them have and the FSB, Financial Services Board. So all of them do have a concern, and they have started the debate whether virtual currencies should be regulated, and in which way, what kind of coordinated activities or positions should be borne in mind. So that work is still on. It is work in process. So primarily because this is an activity which is crossing borders. So inter-regulatory, inter-jurisdictional coordination, cooperation should be there.
Right, Mr. Gandhi, really appreciate you joining us on Bloomberg Quinn. This is the last primetime episode of 2017. It's become a lot more special with your insights. And of course, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Primetime Debate. Many thanks for watching, and wish you a very happy new year from Bloomberg Quinn.